You son of a bitch.
So there's a new Predator movie. Not that you'd really know about it as it kind of just came out on streaming, but it's actually like really good, like really good. The Predator franchise has been something that I've been watching since I was a little kid. John McTiernan's 1987 Predator is a classic of the genre and holds up to this day as one of the best sci-fi action horrors ever made. Predator 2 was an okay sequel and took things from the actual jungle to the concrete jungle, which I thought was a cool idea. Plus, it had Gary Busey.
Oh my.
Robert Rodriguez's Predators I thought was actually pretty good, to be honest, taking the same concept as the original of throwing this badass group into a jungle but turning that concept on its head, with that jungle being on another planet in a predator's hunting ground, and of course adding multiple predators to the mix this time. I thought it was a worthy contribution to the franchise that helped expand the lore, and as for the two Alien vs Predator movies, I think the first one is okay, but the second one I just flat out have no opinion on. I've seen it about 3 times, yet I still haven't seen it because it's so dark. Seriously, you can't see 90% of this fucking movie. It's so bad. So when they said that Shane Black, who played Hawkins in the original Predator, was going to be making his own Predator movie in 2018, my hopes were high. That movie was the epitome of dog shit. The dude from Narcos was the lead, Theon Greyjoy was there, autism was now a superpower, and a predator dog became the goodest boy because it got shot in the head with a nail gun. So it's fair to say that that crime against humanity pretty much put the Predator franchise on life support, and it seemed like anything worthy of rivaling the original Predator was just impossible. That is, until now. When I saw the trailer for Prey a couple of months ago, I thought, here we go, a Predator movie with a low budget that was going to be going straight to streaming with no theatrical release. In my head, I thought, they're really trying to make a worse Predator film than The Predator. Not to mention the huge amount of internet drama because the film was taking place hundreds of years in the past with Comanche warriors trying to take down a predator with a bow and arrow. Which seems pretty far-fetched as Arnie's team of testosterone-fueled sexual tyrannosaurs with all the firepower in the world could barely even do it. And I mean, how was a $120, 5'5" girl with a bow and arrow supposed to take down a predator? At face value, it just looked like I'd have to throw my suspension of disbelief out the window and put up with copious amounts of plot armor. So I certainly had reservations of my own about Prey. But regardless of all of that, I'm always down to give any film a chance, and I'm glad to say that Prey absolutely crushed any doubt that I might have had. Granted, I wasn't against this movie or anything, but there were big red flags that did make me a little bit cautious. But not only did this movie surprise me, it completely blew me away. Prey was 10 times better than I ever thought possible, and it's a very worthy rival of the original Predator, and I think Prey is a perfect Predator movie. So I went into my viewing of Prey with fairly high expectations due to the large amount of praise that the film was getting. It was also holding the highest score of any Predator film on Rotten Tomatoes. Now look, I know Rotten Tomatoes isn't exactly a reliable source of information these days, but my expectations were still pretty high. Prey immediately slapped me in the face with how great it looked. This visually is probably the best Predator film ever made. The visual style of this film was extremely reminiscent of films like The Revenant. Granted, I don't believe they went to the trouble of filming everything with natural lighting like The Revenant, like that was a little bit over the top. But visually, this is incredible, and it's a damn crime against humanity that this film didn't get a theatrical release. Dan Trachtenberg, the director, I believe I pronounced that right, did actually say recently that they shot this film thinking it would hit theaters, so it's a huge shame that it went straight to streaming because it's hard to fully appreciate what's achieved in camera here. And the fact that they seem to be shooting on location for the majority of the film's runtime, it helps sell that you're actually in 1719 and not sitting at the back of a parking lot on a cardboard set. Prey is a very raw and visceral experience that honestly reminded me of 2 things. The Revenant, like I mentioned earlier, and the video game Far Cry Primal. If those 2 things had a baby, I feel like that's what Prey is. This was the Predator film that I don't think any of us thought that we actually needed, but man, I'm glad that it happened. They managed to make the Predator franchise feel fresh again, but at the same time hold on to the Predator DNA that made the first film such a timeless classic. There were some subtle nods such as Naru covering herself in mud, although that was a complete misdirect. Let's be real, we all thought this was going to come into play like every freaking Predator movie ever. And there were a few other nods to the rest of the franchise that had me doing the Leo DiCaprio.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
And I really dug the reference to the pistol from Predator 2. Predator 2 is basically famous for the Xenomorph Easter egg, but shortly after that scene, we see Danny Glover receive the pistols like a token for defeating a Predator. And it also made it quite clear back then that the Predators had actually been coming to Earth for a long time, and we're pretty much seeing that play out here with Prey. So that was a nice little tie into the established lore. At some point, I assume that a Predator is actually going to come back to Earth and kill Naru as she has the pistol, because the Predators need to end up with that pistol in time for Predator 2, and the credits did hint at the Predators coming back to Earth again. But even if they don't expand on this, at worst, it's a really cool little Easter egg. I will say though, I'm pretty sure Prey actually retcons the first AVP film. I think the canon for the Predator franchise is all over the place anyway, but AVP tells us that the Predators have been coming to Earth long before the events of Prey. So seeing that this was the Predators' first time on Earth in this film, I'm pretty sure that completely retcons AVP, but that's a retcon that I'm actually completely fine with. Now let's talk about the Predator itself. The Predator is so iconic, so if you're bringing the Predator back, you gotta treat it with love. And this Predator may well actually be my favorite version of the Predator so far. As this takes place a few hundred years in the past, they decided to scale back the technology of the Predator, which makes sense as A, it helps with the whole how a bow and arrow is supposed to defeat a Predator thing, and B, it makes sense canonically, as the Predators are always looking to improve as time goes by after each of their hunts. So it makes sense that the tech we see them use in Predator, Predator 2 and Predators is a little bit more advanced than it is here. Now, not to say the tech and weapons the Predator has in this film aren't great, because they are. They're just altered versions of what we've already seen. Trade in the plasma cannon for projectiles. The wrist gauntlet doesn't seem to be as powerful here as it is in the modern Predator films, and the shield is a little more primitive as well. But this shield gave us some of the coolest kills in the movie, so it was completely fine. So I think they've done a great job at scaling back the Predator's tech, but not scaling back how brutal the Predator can be. Like, even the camouflage capabilities aren't as good as they are in the other films. And it works to the movie's credit because it created some of the most interesting visuals in the franchise. The Predator holding the bear up with its silhouette being highlighted from the blood, like that was such a cool visual. Even trees moving as it jumps through them or indents the grass as it chases our main character. I think they used the Predator's abilities here extremely well, and I love that they made it clear that this was the Predator's first time on Earth. So we get to see it seeking out the most worthy adversary. So it starts out with a snake, and then it's like a wolf or something, and then a bear, then finally humans. And they rode that line really well of making the Predator this big, imposing, unstoppable force, but also didn't make the Predator completely overpowered to the point where you can't believe when our main character actually defeats it. Like, the Predator in this movie takes an absolute beating, like whether it be by bear or human, this Predator, he cops it in this movie. And I've just got to say, this is probably the coolest Predator design that we've seen so far. At least I think it is personally. I will say though, they managed to make him look even uglier with his mask off than the previous Predators.
You one ugly motherfucker.
So in my opinion, this is the coolest Predator design with the mask on, but the ugliest when it's off. You could probably tell with some of the shots that they didn't actually have the budget to make the face of the Predator look perfect. But again, this Predator with the mask on is just one of the coolest designs, and it doesn't feel like a 7-foot tall stunt performer in a suit. It felt a little more natural than the other Predator films, so they used the budget where they could nicely to pull off the Predator look and movement. But now let's talk about one of the big controversies surrounding Prey when it was originally announced. The whole idea that there was a female lead in a Predator movie. A 5'5", $120 woman taking on a Predator with a bow and arrow. I can understand why people had their worries. And I also understand why people thought the film could have gone a certain way. I've got to say though, Naru, however you pronounce it with my Australian enunciation, she ended up being probably my favorite protagonist out of any of the protagonists in this franchise to date. Don't get me wrong, I love Arnie in the original Predator, but let's be real, Dutch's character wasn't exactly nuanced or complex. But in Prey, they gave Naru a lot to work with. She's smart, she's a great tracker, but she's flawed, she makes mistakes, and she has something to prove. And the film gives her time to actually have a hero's journey, which isn't really what you expect from a Predator film. And I think it works to the film's benefit because you know that she can't just go toe to toe and throw haymakers with the Predator because she'll get absolutely slaughtered. She has to plan what she's doing. She has to use her skills to put things to her advantage and outsmart the Predator, as opposed to the writers forcing you to believe that she can physically take it on in a fight. Quite often with modern Hollywood films with female characters in roles like this, they tend to pretty much bring the male characters down to try and elevate their female lead, and it just doesn't work. But Prey thankfully didn't do that. Naru's brother Tabe, again, I hope I pronounced that right with my Australian tongue, he's the established male warrior of the film, and he's a great supporting character. He kicks ass when he needs to, he's not dumbed down, he's smart and a crucial part in Naru's journey to become the character that eventually can take down the Predator. And by the time the film ended, I totally bought that Naru could actually take the Predator out because they gave the character the time to develop. They gave the character the time to screw up so that when it all comes together, it doesn't feel like she's wrapped in plot armor. Not to mention super powerful just because the script says so. So I think they handled this gender swap lead how it should be done. A lot of filmmakers in Hollywood could be taking note of this. And full credit to Amber Midthunder, she done a great job, and the dog that played her little sidekick, that dog seriously kicked some ass in this film and came up clutch a few times. Now another thing that Prey done incredibly well was take what was great about previous Predator iterations and introduce entirely new elements that inject a bit of life into this franchise. And that's why I think this is the perfect Predator film. Prey returns to the franchise's roots by giving us a group of competent hunters in their own right, being hunted down by a complete mystery. Although I think the first Predator does a slightly better job in translating these unstoppable mercenaries who we see absolutely wreck shop without a flicker of fear, be absolutely scared shitless because of what's hunting them. That was one of the core reasons the first Predator was like lightning in a bottle. Prey definitely tries its hand as best as they can with this. For example, they voluntarily walk straight into a lion's den like it's nothing. But when the Predator shows up, things take a bit of a turn. So I appreciate that they tried to have a go at this, but like I said, I think the first Predator done this slightly better. And it's probably the reason I'd still say that the first Predator is still the best Predator film, because it just invokes more fear through its characters and how their demeanor does a complete 180 the second the Predator shows up. Predators also tried this, and I think it actually done it reasonably well too. The Predator just didn't even try. Like, it's not hard to recognize what worked about the film you were in, Shane Black. You could have at least tried to make it work. But regardless, I definitely do think that taking those elements of the OG Predator and injecting this fresh take of a more primal setting was a really good move by the filmmaker's part. This felt like a Predator sequel / prequel that was actually worth telling. A fresh take on a 35-year-old franchise that had completely run its course, and that is why I believe that Prey is a perfect Predator movie. But go ahead and let me know down in those comments what you thought about Prey and where does it rank on your Predator rankings. For me, Prey is right behind the original Predator, which is a mighty achievement as Predator is a lightning in the bottle classic, let's be real. So yeah, let me know your Predator rankings down in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this video, feel free to subscribe for more videos like this on your favorite movies and shows. HBO are dropping House of the Dragon in just a couple weeks. In anticipation for that, I'm going to be dropping a mammoth video essay on Game of Thrones. I rewatched the entire show recently, including season 8, and yeah, boy do I have things to say about it. So that'll go up alongside the pilot for House of the Dragon, so stay tuned for that. But that is it for me today. Thanks for watching.